we really nailed the design and the visuals from the get-go, and the client just loved it. They were like, yes, this is what we want. Don't show us anything that isn't the visuals. And so that's where the process of samples and things was so important, because even though we were, showing them things, it wasn't quite like the visuals. So that's where a lot of the hard work sort of definitely had to come in. But I think the end result that we got to really did nail that. So yeah, I was really happy how that turned out.
So thank you very much for joining. I'm at Fresha, their new office that's just launched in the Bow Building, Old Street. And I'm with Katie Jago, the senior designer from Loop Interiors. She's going to take me through. I've got like 3 kind of core questions for her. I want to understand about the objectives of the space, what's going on, like why they've done what they've done, and then to see the space, how the spaces are used. And then lastly, like the actual outcomes and how it's worked, kind of actual versus reality. So welcome, Katie. Thank you so much. It's exciting.
It's very exciting. Great to have you here. Thank you for coming.
No, you're very welcome. So here we are at Fresha. Talk to me, Fresha, who are they? First off, kicking off.
Yeah, of course. So Fresha are a software developer, and they provide a booking and management platform for beauty and wellness businesses.
Okay, just an app?
Yeah, so it's predominantly app-based. Yeah.
Cool. And is that quite new, started up in the last 5 years? What does that look like for them?
So I
don't know.
I don't know like the definites, but they definitely are quite like a young company. It still has that sort of startup vibe. So it was a very exciting opportunity to be able to work with them on their new HQ in London.
Cool. Well, it's definitely like very impressive when it hits you when you walk in. So excited to walk around. Katie, can you just tell me, like, what was the objective? Were you working with the actual founders on this project?
Yeah, we were. So yeah, we had a direct link with the founders, and we had initial sort of brief taking meetings with them, walking through the space. So there were a lot of big ideas thrown around. Because they're quite young, they really sort of cared about their employees and that sort of experience that they would have day to day coming into the office. We were talking about slides, big sort of like games rooms, but sort of as we developed and sort of kept having these workshops of talking through things, the sort of objectives and outlook sort of changed slightly. And I think because they were a technology sort of like company, they were interested in having, sort of high tech, etc. But that kind of changed, and it became a lot more about the sort of materiality, how we would feel through the space. And in doing that, we've sort of looked more at movement and reflection. And so it definitely took a different route than we were all expecting.
That's cool. So when you're actually pitching for the project, talking to them early stages, what made them choose Loop?
So I think because it was an existing space, so the space was already fit out. So I guess it's really important to say that it was an existing fit out in the space. And here we're across 3 floors. So I think any sort of project that you take on, and it's a renovation project, so you're working with an existing space, quite quickly things become a bit complicated. Things need to be recorded. You need to have, this conversation's had then, things have changed slightly. So I think inevitably, the more we were talking to them, we just had so much knowledge of what they wanted and what we could offer them, and, just that sort of journey, that trying to do that with multiple companies is just kind of impossible. So I think we just showed them that we were quite good at taking in that information, absorbing it, and then really showing them what we could provide them.
Oh, good for you. Congratulations for winning the job on the loan company. That's excellent. And so, yeah, their goal, they were moving from, where were they before?
So they were actually in a WeWork at Waterloo, which I think did suit them quite well. However, they are going through a lot of rapid growth at the moment. So it was key for them to get not only a HQ in London, but somewhere that they could be for a number of years, and it was going to support them in that growth. And so what they've ended up with here at the Bower is they've got 3 floors. You could have a capacity of about 400 desks in this space.
Okay.
But they've moved in with, I think, about 125.
Oh, wow. So there's lots of room.
There's lots of room. And it made it interesting because, we were working with existing furniture. We've removed and stored furniture. And that's there for when they need it. And inevitably they grow into that space.
So you've got furniture that's not out at the moment?
Yeah, so it's in storage. Yeah, I think we took out about 150 desks in total. Just then it gave us opportunity to, create a large open reception space, create larger collaboration and social areas, which still gives them flexibility in the future.
Yeah. Well, I've actually walked around this office already, and Katie's mentioning that some of all the desks are from previous, and you would never pick that up. So I think that's a massive testament to bringing in like the futuristic, the reflection, kind of sci-fi look and feel with the softness of some of the existing furniture, and to blend that and it to not feel like a jumble sale.
Yeah.
Which is great.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that was the key thing, that they wanted us to look at the space holistically. Even though it's over 3 floors, each floor sort of provides something a bit different. There wasn't that sort of link between all the spaces. I know you've kind of got like staircases that, join places, but the materiality has just linked everything up together, and some of the scale of the areas have again allowed that flow to be a bit more obvious than it was previously.
Yeah. Okay, great. Well, let's definitely take a look. So the key objective here was bringing people from one location in a WeWork all to a central HQ with room for growth.
Yes. Yeah.
Exciting. And it's quite a young, trendy, I mean, even just the feel I'm getting in here, it's like not your typical project. It's very...
No, and that's what made it a really interesting project to work on. And particularly like as a designer, it pushed me to sort of, areas that I never expected to go to in terms of design. And I was specifying like finishes and materials that I'd never worked with before and things like that. So it definitely sort of pushed me out of my comfort zone from a design perspective as well.
That's cool. So what pushed you out of your comfort zone? What materials were weird?
Well, I could list probably about 10, but I think when you think about the brief that we took from the sort of client, they wanted reflection, they wanted movement, they kind of actually wanted it to feel quite intimidating, which isn't what your traditional office would, I say, sort of feel like. But yeah, hopefully you can sort of see in that materiality that this has come through, and intimidating in scale, particularly the reception area.
It's amazing, Katie. So here we are in the reception area. This space that was made to be intimidating with materials that Katie never worked with before. So let's take a look, show us, point out what was new, what challenged you.
Of course. Well, so when a sort of client comes to you and says, we don't want a traditional reception area, we don't want something that sort of is collaborative. They didn't want people to come to this space and sort of work here, etc. So we really had to challenge ourselves in finding that balance. So what we did is we sort of worked with the scale, and so the scale makes the space feel quite intimidating. They kind of wanted that sort of vibe and aspect of sort of walking into like a designer store. So definitely more of like a retail feel. So particularly when we start looking at the finishes, so we have a white resin floor here, and we clad the columns in this sort of like iridescent film, which is really lovely as you walk through the space, and that sort of has that holistic view throughout the space as well. But it really picks up on the different levels of light as you walk through. And just in terms of like the reflection here, sort of, as you have the sun beat down on it, you have lovely sort of reflection there.
Which is one of their whole keywords, wasn't it? Reflection and movement.
Yeah, definitely. So playing with different light. So as you can see, we've got sort of low light, high level light, and again, just bringing in all of that natural aspect as well. And in terms of the desk here as well, these were full light box. And so in terms of the image here, we went with a image of basically iridescent film that it went through an AI program, and the scale sort of distorted it and made it a bit more interesting to sort of see. And so again, that sort of has been put onto glass, so you've got that reflective material as well as then the light behind. So there was definitely lots of elements to sort of play with, and even just to navigate the detail of this, it did take quite a long process to work through with sort of joiners to make sure that we got the right result.
Yeah, what were the challenges with getting that printed on?
Lots of challenges. So when you're printing, particularly this type of image, there's obviously lots of colour, and we wanted it to be vibrant, but we also needed the light to come through. So we had to play with different techniques in printing. And then even just the construction of this is quite complex because it has then the lighting elements behind. So we just had to work through lots of detail to get to there.
It's a wicked end result. Definitely is, like, you can definitely see the play with iridescent, and it ties that wall. Has that got a story behind it?
Yeah, so particularly with this curved wall, it came from the aspect of creating like a flow movement through the space. So as you walk through the main door, it's kind of creating that route around. So with the existing space, there's lots of structural columns. So it was about how you navigate around them and make the space feel larger than probably what it did seem like before. So by creating this curve, you created that movement, and this is actually metal panels that are anodized.
Yeah.
And so this is definitely a material I hadn't worked with before, and went through a lot of sampling to get the right sort of look. And there's a slight sort of change in each of the panels, but I think that helps with the movement and definitely how the light reflects onto it as well. The client really loved that effect.
No, it is impressive. It does all tie in with the whole like kind of iridescent look, doesn't it? Should we keep going through?
Yeah.
Anything else you want to point out?
Yeah, so they don't have a receptionist. So the reception desk, it kind of needed to form as a function, but I think it's more of a showpiece rather than functionality. And then to ensure that we maintained the visibility through the space, so you still had that grand sense of scale, we divided the two sort of like islands by a glass bronze smoky effect sort of divider. And that was really to sort of separate the two spaces, but you've still got that mirroring effect.
Mm-hmm. And the seating, is that intentionally very empty?
Yes. So I think the only banquettes I've installed that aren't intended to be used.
Is that part of I guess that ties back to the intimidating kind of empty seats look.
Exactly, definitely. And even just like the finish in that they're in definitely helps with the reflection playing on. And I really love how the partners also installed the statues. I think it really gives it that sort of like gallery sort of feel as well.
Who installed the statue?
The client did.
Oh, the client did?
Yeah.
It's really cool. It does definitely give that art gallery look.
Yeah, and I just love that you can sort of pick up on different viewpoints, and you've got the skyline out of London, but then you've got sort of texture, sort of planting, you've got that sort of decorative art piece.
Amazing. Brilliant, Katie. What a great introduction to the space. Let's keep moving through, see what else we've got. Should we go that way because of the arrows are that way?
Yeah. Yeah, so just on this space here. So this is a scanner mat, so that people, particularly sort of visitors, can come here and pick up a coffee quite quickly and easily. But we didn't want it to be like a cluttered kitchen space, so the scanner mat is like perfect for that. It's obviously very nice technology. So then moving through, so we had the blue wall, which mimics that movement. And again, we've got the graphic here with the arrows, which again was just like more of that, identification that there was like a main route through to the space. Because originally there was another meeting room here, so we did remove that to create this opening here. And then this opens up onto more of a collaboration space, but again, sort of very sort of tactile.
And is this some of the existing furniture?
No, so this was like the sort of new intervention. The high tables were existing.
Yeah, okay.
So we've repurposed those, but particularly the sort of soft seating, these were all new pieces. I think to more add to that.
And these aren't in use at the moment, maybe because of the time of day, but are they intended to be used?
Yes and no. Yes, from a collaboration perspective. However, you'll see that we've mirrored again the two spaces. So, probably in a normal office, I would have said, have one collaboration space here, another one here, and then another one there, because then it offered a bit more of optionality for the employers to work at. However, I think going back to the sort of reception desk and that mirroring effect, I think there's something quite nice that then came through into this space as well, and it feels less cluttered.
No, it's definitely got a structure which is playing through. I like how the floor ties in with the table so nicely, considering that they are reused.
Yeah, and what I also love about this space as well is we changed up some of the lights in here, so you kind of have that globe effect coming through, and it's visible and it's sort of on that level.
Yeah, it's at your...
Yeah.
There. And then we're looking across the collaboration space at the workstation with the meeting rooms in the core.
Yes.
It's just all wrapped in the iridescent film.
Yeah, so...
How many meters of iridescent film did you?
A lot, yeah. I think probably about 600 meters squared, which is a lot of people's offices. But yeah, so that was a architectural film from Cover Still, actually. And again, that was a product that I've never worked with before. And again, sort of sampling with the client. I mean, there's not many products out there like that, but this was definitely the one that the client felt, was the most reflective. And it's kind of subtle in its look, but it's quite dramatic at the same time. And so the layout of the floor plans is that all of the meeting spaces are centralised. So you have this commonality across all the floors. And so it was like, how can we tie in those spaces, but kind of create a feature as well? So using the architectural film, you have that language throughout the space. And then in terms of the sort of finish of these, again, we had to work through some detail of how would we finish it on the corner, particularly because that's, a bit of a weak point in terms of being knocked, etc. So we actually come up with a corner detail here. And then when we did apply the film, because it comes in sheets, inevitably there's going to be sort of like a join line. And kind of working with the client on this, they weren't necessarily happy that you could see the joint line. So we worked with them and basically used an LED strip to sort of cover that line, but I think also it gives it a bit more of a dynamic look.
Yeah, no, and it kind of all ties in with pillars and the verticals.
Yeah.
And then these are, is this a different film?
Yeah, so this is more of your typical manifestation iridescent film.
Okay.
So that can't be applied to walls. So that's why this is slightly different product. So this is a lot thicker in terms of a bit more of like a wallpaper. But yeah, this architectural film, again, that's what we've got across manifestation in the whole space. So you do have that going through. And then, yeah, it's great, isn't it?
Really nice. And each one's different colour.
Yeah.
I love it. Really
So yeah,
cool.
and they're vibrant, but they're not too sickly.
They're not like headachy.
No. And they're sort of cute little light bulb, globe bulb, sorry.
It's amazing how much colour and reflection you've managed to capture in this space without it feeling cheap. And when you're talking about the project before I could see it, I kind of had this quite tacky,
Yeah.
like sci-fi look in my head, but it's actually like pulled through. I think like what you said about the iridescent film is true. It is definitely very reflective and it's got a lot of movement and like shine to it, but it's also kind of quite matte and pared back in a strange way to it.
Yeah.
It's a really nice balance.
Yeah, and I think we were surprised with that as well. And I think, you know, a lot of the film, it was actually when we started construction that we were like, okay, maybe we'll do this space as well. Maybe let's connect this. So a lot of it wasn't initially intended to happen until we were on site being like, okay, we kind of need a bit of this as well. Like, so from a holistic perspective, I think overall, from what we did on site, it definitely developed it even further.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, so these workstations were left by the previous tenant. And so there was about 380 workspaces initially. So there's a really great sustainability story behind this and, you know, just the sort of CO2 emissions that were saved from reusing the existing desks. And we've also stored, I think, about 150 of these. So when Fresha inevitably grow and they need that expansion again, we've got them in storage to then reinstall them. And so, yeah, I think it's a great way to use, you know, an existing high quality product.
I also think it's like a story for like designers globally, but especially in London, because we've got this kind of feeling that everything has to be new. We just do, like even I do, like you just gravitate to buying new because you feel that's the only way to tie everything in.
Yeah.
But with creativity, it's actually pulled through really nicely. And I feel it's got like a bit of a different feel, but it does tie and it almost creates those zones in quite a nice way anyway.
Yeah.
Really works.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know, it is great. And so there's desks on each floor.
Yes.
So we've got basically the same layout, workstations, meeting spaces, collaboration spaces.
Yes. Yeah, exactly that. Yeah, and I think from my perspective as a designer, you know, I grew up in a family, my parents were very ambitious in undertaking like 5 self-builds. So I grew up on a building site being taught to be quite resourceful of, you know, everything that was there. They didn't completely knock down everything. They tried to utilise what they could. So I think when I think of my journey and what I like to design, I definitely think sort of renovations like this and working with existing, I think that's where that's what I enjoy the most, I think. Even though it makes things 100 times more complicated. It does. And it doubles the work almost because, you know, you're not just thinking about, okay, let's, you know, design this is the intervention. Well, actually, you've then got to think, okay, what can we keep, what's existing, what are we going to reutilise or repurpose, and then anything new, or how does that then work with the existing, or, you know, what we're going to repurpose, etc. So there's always that additional element or thinking or sort of thought, but I think working in a white box, I would look at it and be like, not really sure, like, but then when you're working with existing spaces and, you know, you kind of have a bit more of a, you have things to work with or alongside. I think that's where sort of creativity definitely comes out to play.
I think where the genius is if you are like using existing furniture in like quite eclectic look or quite sort of like neutrals and that sort of thing, it can kind of work. But where you've done it and tied it with this like very futuristic look, I think that's where the genius is. So I think that's like, congratulations to you as a designer. So well done.
Yeah. So again, utilising these spaces that, you know, you've got the skyline, really open, double height, and just a really, you know, just a really sort of simple piece of furniture, but the choice of fabric just adds a different sort of dimension to it. And yeah, I think it just needed that small intervention. And then this is where, again, we used the iridescent film in this double height space. And so this was, again, something on site that we were like, okay, this floor probably needs a bit more elevation, so applied it here.
It's nice how it like joins everything up. I'm looking for a better word, but let's go with that for now.
Yeah.
And what an amazing space to work. Yeah, with this view.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty...
It is a great space.
Perfect, isn't it?
Yeah, when we first came to the space, we were like, wow, okay, this is cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, the juices definitely started flowing.
Yeah. Definitely a great day to be videoing it as well. With the...
Yeah, we've been very lucky.
Oh, amazing. I love all these meeting rooms and the band of the film coming through. Just nice. Nice touch.
Yeah, thank you. And so then, yeah, just touch on in here. So there is one existing boardroom, but the client asked for us to create another room here for them, so they could, you know, expand and have two larger meetings going on. So this was, I mean, quite easy to form. So the room behind as well, it was one big large. They kind of had it as like a bit of a library before. But yeah, we just put in quite a simple partition here and was able to create two sort of new interventions, I suppose. These stairs were already here, and you know, they're perfectly great in terms of linking the spaces, but I think what we've done in terms of bringing that materiality to link the spaces as well as create a better flow through the space as well, definitely just elevates everything.
Yeah, so this was all existing.
Yeah.
It was tied in. And what is this space for?
So yeah, this is the main social sort of cafe space, I guess you would sort of call it. And again, this was existing, but we just gave it a bit of a refresh. And the existing islands here, again, they were in like a really good condition. However, in terms of the finishes underneath, it just didn't quite go with the look that we were going for. So again, we've installed the light box with then colour changing lights, so the client can control them on an app, and they can, you know, sort of evolve into whatever they please.
Doing that.
Yeah.
On a Friday night.
Yeah. And so again, we've got the columns clad in the iridescent architectural film. So again, bringing that language through.
And the furniture is existing?
Yes. So yeah, we have, we used some of the furniture on here, but again, added a few pieces of new in between as well.
Nice. It's very nice. Got a beautiful view, which is helpful.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so this was definitely a space that there was lots of ideas going initially from when we first met the client and started taking the brief. And, you know, we were talking about sort of slides, we were talking about games rooms. I think we were talking about like a climbing wall at one point. So it was kind of really, they wanted something fun and social. But it did start to come a bit gimmicky, I think, and a bit overdone I think, when did Google install their slide? Like quite a long time ago. So it didn't feel very futuristic and probably not aligned to probably what the client was looking for either. So yeah, we went through lots of options there, but I think really what stuck out from them was that they wanted, flexibility, and they wanted somewhere that they could use as a brand, they could show off their brand, and again, give back to their employees. So creating an event space / bar disco area really gave a different aspect.
Nice. I love how it reflects the stairways in terms of the shape of it.
Yeah.
It widens out.
Yeah, I do too. And yeah, again, so it was mirroring that existing sort of format and shape. And this bar runs 16 meters in length. So again, we've got that light box running through, and we installed a number of kegs. They've got like their ice cream machine. So it's a really fun space.
Yeah. That's amazing.
And then,
got the disco ball.
Yeah, so the disco ball, metre wide disco ball. Don't see it in many offices, if any. And again, we've got UV lights, they've got disco lights. So yeah, when it comes to sort of the evening, this space totally gets transformed.
Definitely, you can tell like the culture of the company coming through in the design, which I think is lovely.
Yeah.
The spaces that we inhabit and the furniture that we work around and the people that we work around definitely shape who we are and who we become. So I think in terms of you can, without even seeing hardly any people or the space in operation, you can still tell that the culture is very like fast paced, very energetic.
Yeah.
Probably intense for a word, like, do you know what I mean? In a good way. So you can definitely feel like feeling it pull through.
Yeah. So yeah, I do love this space. And it's so true to the visuals that we showed the client as well. And I think that's similar to a lot of the spaces actually, even the reception. We really nailed the design and the visuals from the get-go, and the client just loved it. They were like, yes, this is what we want. Don't show us anything that isn't the visuals. And so that's where the process of samples and things was so important, because even though we were, showing them things, it wasn't quite like the visuals. So that's where a lot of the hard work sort of definitely had to come in. But I think the end result that we got to really did nail that. So yeah, I was really happy how that turned out.
It's all exciting. And there's one other space as well, the wellbeing room.
Yes.
Which is totally different, I hear.
Yes.
Okay, let's go and have a look.
Okay, cool.
Exciting, Katie. Well, we've taken a walk through all of the office space. We've now landed up at the end in the wellness room, and such a different vibe.
Yeah.
Clearly intentional.
Very intentional. Yes.
So no, let's talk me through it. What did you have in mind when you were creating this?
Yeah, again, so because Fresha, they work with wellness brands, it was really important for them to not only reflect that, but, give something back to their employees and make sure you have the area to step away from the desk. And also they wanted it to become like a bit of a multifunctional space as well. Mm-hmm. So yeah, in terms of the look and feel in here, obviously very, very different. You've got your sort of more natural wood tones. And then with the graphic, you have that sort of immersive feel of actually being in nature. And then when it came to the furniture as well, these are some new module pieces from Davidson and Hiley, and I think they just work perfectly because they have that organic shape and they're quite irregular, they're sort of very mobile, so they could be moved around. And then you've got like the really cute sort of table aspects as well. And then, yeah, we just sort of paired it with some floor lighting, make it quite ambient in here. We can turn the sort of main overhead lights off. And then just to add further softness, we've gone for some drapery on the ceiling from yourselves. And again, that was sort of really working with the existing ceiling. Like, we didn't want to move lots of stuff around, but how can you soften it? How can you, add a bit of acoustics to this quite large space as well? So I think they work really well.
Yeah, it's such a stark contrast because everything that we've seen as we walk through is all very mirrored and it's very symmetrical, and all of the sort of collaboration spaces and the desking, it's all about that repetition.
Yeah.
And then coming in here and everything's very organic, and there's not that structure, which is also one of the biggest wellness rooms I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's fab.
Which I think is great because companies talk about wellness and they have a wellness room, but the sheer scale of this shows that they're prepared to dedicate that much space to the wellness.
And
proves a point.
Yeah, definitely. And I think we did explore having, sort of quieter, smaller pods, etc. However, I think they were just more aligned to making it as still a place for everyone. And I do think you can get that sense of away from the desk, sense of self-care, like amongst other people. I don't think it necessarily needs to be a individual, shut yourself away kind of thing. Because I think there's other areas for that in the office, particularly with all the sort of phone booths and stuff that we installed. So I still see this as quite like a collaborative space.
Yeah, so what else would they host in here other than wellness, like yoga?
Yeah, so they have the yoga events. I mean, could have it for podcasts.
There we go.
And just maybe like an add-on event space, really.
Yeah, no, that's great. Excellent. Well, thank you, Katie. Thanks for showing us around the whole space and the whole vision, how it's come to life and each of the spaces and how that's to be used. I think it's phenomenal. Just to come to my last point, really, how has it been actually compared to what the initial vision was? How's the actual turnout been? Has it been what you expected, what they expected?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's hard to sort of balance what we discussed originally in terms of like big ideas to then look what it is now, because I still think it's a very big idea. It's a very successful concept that's sort of worked its way through. But I don't think we could have envisioned this at the start. It's definitely been a journey, and I think a very successful one from our perspective and also the client's perspective. I think they're like chuffed with the space. So
Brilliant.
Yeah, it's really great.
And how the space is being used? Have they seen it in use at all? Are people like going between the spaces as expected?
Yes, definitely. And I think the most successful space, which I think is probably apparent, is the bar space. And we were actually finishing up on site and they were having a party that day. So we were still fully on site, getting everything ready, dressing everything. And they were bringing in all the beer and everything, setting up literally for the party that evening. So it was quite a late night for everyone to get everything finished. But it was the best thing, it all coming together and then them being able to enjoy it as it should have been.
First things first, the bar. I love it.
Exactly.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Katie. Appreciate your time. Appreciate you showing us around. And it's a beautifully pulled together, coherent project. So congratulations.
Thank you very much. Thank you.